You're listening to the Grow Landscapers podcast, the podcast where we delve deeper into landscape business, interviewing legends of the UK landscaping industry. So, join host Nick Ruddle as he explores their thoughts, insights and experiences. That's here on the Grow Landscapers podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Grow Landscapers podcast. I'm Nick Ruddle and today we're joined by the one and only independent expert witness, Gareth Wilson. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, and pleasure to have you on the show. I've done my research. You've got a pretty impressive list of your achievements on here, and I'm just going to embarrass you a little bit because there's so many of them. So make yourself comfortable whilst I read out this list. So gold medalist at RHS Chelsea Flower Show, 7 RHS Show Garden gold medals, over 30 medals in total, 7 RHS Best in Show awards, 3 RHS Show People's Choice Awards, an RHS Best Construction Award, and that was the second largest show garden ever built at an RHS show. So pretty impressive list, and we only get the best of the best on this show, so you are up there with the best, Gareth. So welcome to the show. Real pleasure to have you on, and thanks for accepting the invitation. Really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Right, so let's get cracking, shall we? So how long have you personally been in the industry?
Well, since 1989. So basically, I'm going into my 34th year now. Wow. Yeah, a long time. Many ups and downs.
Oh yeah, a few
more ups though, more ups,
and been through a few recessions there as well, I would imagine.
There's been 2 major recessions there. I'm obviously we're about to go into the third, but I mean, I was actually landscaping on the tools myself for 31 years, and the last 2 and a bit years I've obviously been mediation, training, expert witness, and British Standards Committees and things like that. So, yeah, actually on the tools 31 years, but the last couple of 2 and a bit years I've been doing other things, shall we say.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit
2 recessions, one on the way, but, you get through them, but it's all about using your brain, thinking outside the box.
Absolutely, and learning from those that have been through that and navigated their way through successfully. So just tell us a bit more about what you do now then, as opposed to maybe what you've done, for 31 years, what you've been doing for the last couple of years.
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, when the last COVID kicked in, I had time to myself for the first time I can remember, really. And I was going walks with my family. I had time on my hands, and I was like, do you know what? I actually like this.
Yeah.
And I was struggling with my health, stress-wise, sleeping issues, and all sorts of things that had just built up over the years. Yeah. And then I just thought, do you know what? Do I need that stress, or do I move on?
Worth it,
so I just decided, if I'm gonna progress in life. I mean, because I've got to be honest with you as well, my doctor did say to me, he says, the way you're going, you're not going to reach 55.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the doctor's a friend of mine. Stress related, yeah. He basically said to me, look at yourself in the mirror. And I didn't think I looked any different, if I'm honest. And I look back now to myself then when, pictures come up on Facebook and things like that, and I think, Jesus.
Really? Wow.
I looked terrible.
Nothing's worth that, is it?
So I shut down the business. My lads took over. They all started their own companies. I helped them out for the first couple of years, get on the feet and everything else, and introduce them to different people. And that's how it worked. And then soon enough, I started working as a trainer at the Landscape Academy. I then got mentored by the great Alan Sargent on how to become a expert witness.
Right.
And then I decided I was going to do some courses because I thought, you never stop learning, do you? So, and you always want to try and improve. So I did my my training course, which I passed. I did a mediation course and passed that. I'm now virtually there now. I've handed in my final assessment for being an assessor. So now I've just got to speak to my mentor because it's an online course, and he's going to basically assess me 1-to-1, and then I've passed my course, but that'll probably take me about another couple of weeks, and that's it, done.
Yeah, wow.
I'll be doing my RICS course next year and things like that. So yeah, I've been training myself. I was a lecturer for a year at the London College of Garden Design, and yeah, so I've been. Oh, and I'm on the British Standards Committee as well. They invited me to come on there, which I'm not going to lie to you, it's been hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, but I mean, I've got valued input for them, and I'm learning a hell of a lot from some incredibly intelligent people in the paving world. Believe me, I mean, these guys are the next level, the top level.
Well,
So yeah, I mean, life's changed a hell of a lot. But the most important thing is, Nick, I've got time for myself and my family, and I'm not 24/7 bombing about like a complete clown all the time.
Yeah, and feeling the stress of all that as well, isn't it? It takes its toll after a while. So so I suppose you thought you'd have a little bit of an easier ride, and in many ways you have, but you're still keeping yourself really busy, but without all the aggro and all the stress.
Yeah, I mean, I've signed up for 3 flower shows this year at Chelsea, Hampton Court, and next year, sorry,
3
and Tatton. So I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment in that sort of department, but do you know what? I actually love it at the same time.
Yeah, you love it. You can't keep away. But I suppose as long as you're not doing it day in, day out, and affecting your health, but just to dip in and out of it, to get the good stuff. I think that's a lovely place to be, isn't it? Excellent.
Dipping in and out. That's the best. The best terminology I've heard. Yeah, dipping in and out. Sort of like not so much picking and choosing, but just going back to the things that you love, and you're getting a chance then. Because I did a flower show 2 flower shows this year at Tatton and Chelsea, and I absolutely, because it was just me, it's a couple of my old team, members as well were involved on one of the shows. Absolutely loved it, because I've not got the pressure's now shared. Yeah, it's not just on Gareth's shoulders. Yeah. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. To be fair, loved it.
Nice. And you can take all the glory as well, can't you? And all the exposure.
There is a little bit of that as well, I suppose.
It's nice. It's nice. It's good.
Ego.
Brilliant. Wow. So more than qualified to be talking about the ups and downs of business and within the industry specifically. So so where did it all start for you then? When in the early years, back in 1989, what did the business look like? Where did it start?
Well, a bit of a funny story, really, because my dad always used to be like, "What are you going to do when you leave school? What are you going to do?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. You know what you're like when you're that age." I didn't have a clear path in front of me like a lot of the other kids did. And I can remember one day, my dad came home and he says, "Well, you cut next door's grass. You come helping me at weekends doing your dry stone mowing and that." He says, "Why don't you become a landscaper and garden maintenance man?" So I had my feet up watching Neighbours, Kylie Minogue and what have you. And I can remember just looking around at my dad and going, and I was basically thinking, "Dad, just do one while I watch the television." And I just went, yeah, all right, Dad, yeah. Anyway, the next thing he's booked me on these courses at Tameside College, horticulture courses, and I'm doing groundwork courses and things like that. Wow. And it's really, honestly, it's so strange, Nick. It just happened in a blur. And the next thing I've got 10 clients on the garden maintenance. I'm booked up for 3 months doing like paving and landscaping projects and walls and stuff. And then, and it just ballooned from there. And I didn't have a clue what I was doing, really. Do you know what I mean? Well, so when I didn't have a clue what I was doing, I didn't know where I was going, where this journey was going to, where it was progressing. It was just something my dad had said while I was watching Neighbours, and then it just started to happen. But I wouldn't be doing what I do now without my dad. That's for sure.
No. Yeah. So is it either got your dad to thank or blame? Either blame your dad or thank.
Both, I think, really.
Very good, very good. Well, look, it's nice that sometimes you need a bit of guidance and some wisdom from the elders.
Definitely,
parents, do know what they're talking about a lot of the time, and it's stood you in good stead, isn't it?
It certainly has. It certainly has.
Okay, then. So well, I suppose that sort of answers my next question, really, which is about what made you go into business in the first place. It sounds like your dad made you to go into his business and then onto business for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I went on an enterprise allowance scheme, which was a scheme where the government gave you like 40 quid a week in your first year. So, of course, again, my dad booked me onto this and my dad put me onto it.
Brilliant.
He did all the research. My dad did all the pushing. I've got to be honest. I'd love to be able to tell you and say, you know, I had the ingenuity to do this, this, and this, and I didn't at the time. I was 17, you know, just 18,
Yeah.
you know, when, you know, so but my dad guided me, put me through everything, and he insisted that I wasn't going to be another, you know, barrow boy, you know, just barrowing all day and digging holes. You were going to be skilled. You were going to have knowledge of plants.
Yeah.
So that's why I went on the horticulture courses. You know, he wanted me to do things properly.
Mm.
You know, and then that's why, you know, I'm not just like a hard landscaper. You know, horticulture was actually my first passion, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and that's what guided me through. But it sort of the journey then began.
yeah. So it started there then. Where did it lead to in terms of when you exited the business, in terms of maybe the offices, number of vans, number of people, kind of projects you worked on, turnover, all those kind of things? What stage did you get it to where you thought, you know what, that's enough?
Well, to wind back a little bit, sort of like in where I live in Glossop, we live in a valley, so we've got a valley full of reservoirs. You know, so that tells you we've got tons of rainfall. And in the year 2000, my daughter was born, so it just rained, Nick, every single day, day in, day out. And if you're trying to maintain grass in people's gardens, and we've got clay up here, you're just churning it up. So I was getting no work done. You know, the cash flow was going down. And by this time, my dad had retired. He'd taken early retirement, so he was landscaping himself, mainly dry stone walling.
Yeah.
So I realised that, well, my dad never stops working. I stopped working. I'm sat at home watching Flipping Neighbours again. You know, which wasn't bad because Kylie Minogue was on again. But, you know, at the end of the day, I thought, do you know what? Because the garden maintenance had taken over a lot. I was more garden maintenance than I was landscaping. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to have to push that to one side, push the landscaping. So the landscaping went on and on and on. And the landscaping, again, I don't quite know how it happened, but it just ballooned from nothing. Well, not a lot like that quickly, but I advertised myself well.
Yeah.
I went in all the local magazines and things like that, which used to work back in the day.
Yeah.
And that went on, and then I went to Tatton Flower Show in 2010, and my friend Joanne, who I went with, said, "You should build one of these gardens, one of these little ones, these back-to-back gardens." And I was like, "Do you know what? Yeah, I will do." And in 2012, I built my first RHS show garden, and we went from building the smallest show garden you can get, a 6 metre by 4 metre at Tatton. And then we ended up at Chelsea. Again, and we're building a small artisan garden. But to go from, you know, from not the bottom of the pans, you know, but from Tatton to Chelsea in a few years was a really good achievement. And we did that courtesy of Paul Harvey Brooks, world famous designer. But in between that, the smallest garden we built was 6 metres by 4 metres. And at the time, in 2012, that seemed to us like the biggest garden ever. Yeah. And then, of course, we get to 2017 and we do build literally the second biggest show garden ever at 500 square metres. Wow. At 503 square metres. And to put that in perspective, your main avenue garden at Chelsea is 200 square metres.
Oh, right. Okay.
So we progressed very, very quickly. But going back to what we were saying, the mither just got bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, mither to Southerners means stress.
Right.
And like I say, by the time I got to like probably around about 2020, I'd had enough. But I had a lot of health issues which were brought on by stress. Yeah. And the health issues were either going to kill me, and that is not a joke. That's not exaggeration. Or I was going to do something about it. And I didn't do something about it immediately. But I did. And now, you know, I've moved on to where I am now, and life couldn't be better.
Yeah. But you left the company in a good position when you said earlier, I think before we came online, you set your lads up. There's a transitional period where you handed things over, introduced them to the people you knew. And
yeah. Well, it was I closed the company down because I did not. That was the stress of the company. That's what was giving me all the health issues I had. So the company had to go. Otherwise I'd have gone with it. So it was that simple. So I closed the company now. But these lads who work for me, Mitchell, Adam, Big Tom, you know, they're not just lads who work for me. These lads are as good as family to me, and me to them. So if, for example, Tom rang me the other day, can you just come and have a look at this for me? Straight in the car, straight down to old Tom. Mitchell rings me last week. Please, can you come and help me with this? And that's the way we all work.
Yeah.
You know, if we want something, we ask each other and we help each other out. And like I say, we are like a family. So these lads, I felt I had a duty to them to help them get started, use all my old contacts, help them all out, show them how to structure their own businesses and move on from there, really.
Yeah, and that's great for them as well, isn't it? Because if you hadn't have made that decision, they probably wouldn't then make that leap into running their own kind of concern, and
Exactly.
and then they go on to bigger and better things as well. So it's nice to be able to have some kind of legacy, isn't it, around that?
Absolutely.
Which is nice. It's a lovely
And I
thing.
owe it to them as well, because, you know, they work very hard for me.
Yeah.
And to
Well,
give something
where
back.
you want to get to, don't they? So what do you think the most important elements are then to running a successful business?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think treating your employees right.
Yeah.
But I also think that those that aren't, you know, swimming in the right direction of you need to bloody go very quickly.
Yeah.
You know,
very good.
if they aren't singing from the same hymn sheet as you are, they're actually dragging the rest of you down.
Yeah.
So look after those that look after you, but those who are not swimming in your direction need to be pushed off board. And you need to protect your company as well. Contracts, T's and C's. And you've got to get people into the habit of basically word of mouth has never happened, has it? You know, so all communications by email I find are very, very important, because then you've got backup, you've got a paper trail.
Yeah.
You know. But do you know what the best thing I ever did was my secretary Sammy, who still works for me now. She came on board because she hated her job. Her husband, boyfriend at the time, he was the manager of Travis Perkins. He'd then gone from Travis Perkins to Markovitz in Gloucester, another builders merchants, and now he's at MKM. So Rob knew what we should be getting charged for a company my size. He knew what we should be getting charged for different things and what the lowest prices would be. So in the first year that Sammy came working for me, she basically beat everybody down on price.
Brilliant.
She took all my calls. She did all my CDM files. She did all me, you know, signable documents, which would be my contracts and my T's and C's. She took all my calls. And I was like, my God, like the phone's not ringing. What's going on here? Because she would decipher what I needed to speak to people now or what could wait. And in my first year, she saved me £21,000.
Paid for herself.
Yeah.
A chunk of it.
Sammy was amazing.
Yeah, I think it's a common thing with everyone in the industry, and I think in all companies really, having a really good right-hand person is so beneficial to the business owner, because then you can have the time and energy, headspace to then focus on the strategic stuff and the higher level stuff, knowing that you can trust someone to get on with all that stuff is so important, isn't it? So important.
Well, she formats now all my expert witness work. She takes all, you know, phone calls and everything else that I might get.
Yeah, all the time consuming.
And she just saves me time. You know, and time is what we all need. Time with our families, time for yourself. And she manages my work life. That's why we call it the work life. But I think even for very, very small companies, I think somebody like Sammy, even if they're just somebody who's on the end of a phone, because you can hire these people for about, you know, like
virtual
about 50 quid a week.
Yeah.
And I think somebody like that they're invaluable to a company.
Yeah. Well, it gives you your time, and also, I suppose, therefore, then manages your stress levels, doesn't it? Really, because you're not thinking, I've got to do that, got to do this, got to do that, and before you know it, you feel like you're overwhelmed. And if you don't respond well to that, or if you don't handle stress well, then get rid. It's not worth it, is it?
It's you've got more time then to concentrate on the job that you should be doing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the key thing. Because like at one stage in my business life, I tried to do everything, and as anybody will tell you, you can't do everything.
No, and nor should you as the business owner. You should be the least busy person in the business, but generally tends to not work that way. So I suppose the big takeaway from that then is get help on the administration side, get that off your plate, and get someone else that probably enjoys it better than you and is better at it than you as well.
All day long, all day long.
Yeah, good. So, okay. So, if you look back over your career then of running your business, what would you say the biggest mistakes or the biggest lessons you've learned over the years?
Biggest lessons I've learned are don't trust the clients, really. I had some amazing clients.
Yeah.
But what they say and what they will do are completely different things. And that's going back to the word of mouth thing.
Okay, in what way?
The biggest mistake was trusting clients to do what they said they would do.
Okay.
So, I mean, like I say, it's only a small percentage of clients that basically, we've all had them, they want to make your life a misery. And if you haven't got their hats nailed on with the contract T's and C's and a working paper trail, you know, it'll cost you money and it'll cost you stress. Yeah. I mean, we used to get, I don't know, between 3 and 5 clients a year where if you said, look, I'm going to give you £1 million, they'd say, we want 1.5 million. You know, just a free gift. Yeah. It wouldn't never be enough for them.
Yeah.
You know,
we had
when I left the business, we were on about 8 a year, where usually you can see them, not always, but they're just trouble. They're looking for trouble. Professional non-players, as Mr. Sargent calls them, and they're on the increase. That's why I'm always encouraging landscapers at my seminars to protect themselves and the companies. But let's not forget, though, let's not be too negative. I have had amazing, and there are some amazing clients out there. But the big thing is trust your gut for me. Yeah. Always trust your gut feeling and the science behind it. And the science behind it is your gut is connected to your brain. And they've said for years and years and years, happy gut, healthy mind. And it's completely true, because the 90% of serotonin is created in your gut, not in your brain. So serotonin is the happy chemical. So when your gut is like, Gareth, this isn't right, follow your gut feeling. Walk away. It's easier to walk away than it costs you a fortune due to the bad clients. When the red flags start popping up, that's your gut telling you. Yeah.
Well, you know, one of the other guests you've had, Mark Gregory, on this show.
The legend himself.
He's won a few gardens as well, even more than you. But what he said on that podcast, on that episode, was about contractual. Always be contractual, and his job is to manage risk. So anyone who hasn't listened to that one is a really good one, because as you've just said there about making sure you've got everything contractual. And he said that one of the biggest compliments that someone can give him is, as they do, or have they in the past, is, "Oh, you're so contractual, Mark." And he says, I take that as a real compliment. Yes, I am. Everything. So it's exactly the same as what you're saying there. So it's managing that risk, not exposing yourself, and making sure that everyone knows exactly what's been agreed and where you are. So important. So important.
Yeah, you've got it, and it's protecting yourself, protecting your company, and protecting your family, really, as well.
Ultimately,
because people will try and have you over. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I pay for that otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very good, very, very good. So protect all the downside, all the risk, and then you won't go too far wrong. Okay, then, very good. Are there any kind of other major challenges that you've had in the past that you overcame? Can you think back to
how long have you got?
How many challenges?
Challenges I've overcame: staffing crises, getting people of the right working mentality who can work to your levels, and your expectations.
Yeah,
that is a big one, because I think the bane of many people's lives as a business owner are your staff. And if you haven't got, we're going back to the same thing as I said before. If they're not swimming in your direction or singing from your hymn sheet, they shouldn't be with you.
Yeah, they say that the staff are your best asset, aren't they? But if they're not, if they're a nightmare,
they're not. Then they're And like I say, I had Mitchell, Adam, and Tom, and they're their family, and they still are. You know.
Yeah.
And
Get rid of the ones that are no good and keep the
yes,
ones that are
exactly.
good. And look after
And
those ones.
I think one of the hardest things as well is when you start moving to the next level of landscaping. So from when you're moving from like doing 20 grand jobs to 40 grand jobs, you're gonna find yourself you're working with more expensive products. So one of my greatest regrets is when you've got, like, say, millboard, one of the top end decking products, bar none, is there are so many tips and so many things you can learn about installing millboard. I mean, fortunately, I had a good friend of mine, Ross Conquest, who basically he'd been on the course and he went through it all with me. So we were quite up to date with all that. That was fine. But I always wished I'd gone on more of these training courses by my millboard, by Trex, by Steintech in doing all their installation course, or just showing you one-to-one how to use their products. I was always too busy. And now whenever somebody like Barl, we've got a training course here, do you want to come on it, Gareth? I'm there like a shot. An absolute shot. Anything that comes up that's training wise or can improve my knowledge or my skill, I am on it.
Yeah, well, you become more valuable, don't you? Your staff, your team become a lot more valuable and better. You get more money.
And I share it with my lads as well.
Yeah.
I would encourage anybody, and again, it goes back to time management, is if you get any chances to go on any of these training, days or courses or seeing how products are used properly, spend 300 quid and go on the millboard course. It's worth every penny.
Yeah, just think
you'll learn loads.
What would you get back? Return on investment for that 300 quid? I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Really, it's all about return on investment.
And I'll be honest with you as well. The British Standard, I did. It came into my last seminar at Futurescape. On a couple of contractors were saying, 150 quid or 180 quid for this document. So how much is a new drill? This document will serve you.
Yeah, the value of that.
You're investing in your company. If you go out for a night out for a meal with your wife and everything else and your kids, you're talking 150, 200 quid for a meal, drinks and everything else.
You don't think twice about that.
You don't think twice about that. Exactly. Doesn't even cross your mind. But you want 150 quid to invest in your company.
Yeah, pay you back forever.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, mentality, having the right mentality in business.
Yes, exactly.
Is so important, isn't it? Okay, good. So what 3 tips would you give the listeners then to improve their efficiencies or profits in their business?
Ooh, right, efficiencies.
And I know you haven't had you have a lot of the other members on or people that have been on this show have actually read all the questions I'm going to give you. You're doing this totally off the top of your head. You said no. I'm putting you on the spot here with every one of these questions.
No, you're not actually. No, because I know the answers. It's just
they're all in there, aren't they? They're all in there somewhere.
Yeah, I can talk for England, as you've probably noticed. So efficiency. Efficiency would have to be a PA for me.
Yeah.
And a PA, like I say, that's not going to just deal with one builder's merchant. She's going to deal with several, or he. So having your wingman or your work wife, like I've got with Sammy, is essential.
Yeah.
Because she can send out all your documents, CDMs, risk assessment, method statements, everything. Yeah, and that's a job I was doing before. So again, you're freeing up time there, aren't you? And efficiency.
You very efficient, doesn't it? Makes you much more efficient.
Much more efficient and more, more time savvy as well.
Yeah.
But I would say as well, you've got to run a successful diary.
Yeah.
I think a day-to-day diary, being ahead of things, setting reminders on your phone and things like, because we do live in a day and an age now where people will leave you a bad review just for turning up late.
Yeah. Yeah. Be careful, haven't you?
You've got to be careful. So managing your diary and actually knowing what you're earning off a job. It's all right, having this job, but you will have set yourself out for how much you spent on all the different materials, how much time you spent on the job. You need to know whether you've earned what you should have earned off that job. Yeah. So each job needs to be broken down, which again is something that Sammy can do, or your work wife or your PA, as I call it.
Yeah.
So I think it's managing clients' expectations. That's the big one.
Yeah, and communicating with them.
Communication is everything in every walk of life.
Absolutely, a lot of things
They're my tips.
can be sort of avoided, if you just
Yes.
communicate, isn't it? So one thing that you said there about the diary management. So we call that a default diary. It's like your school timetable. Blocking out
Absolutely.
specific time to do specific things throughout the week, planning ahead, because the more you look ahead, the less things become urgent, don't they? Because you sort of foresee what's going to happen. But if you're busy all the time and you haven't got, a PA, or you're trying to do everything yourself, you're going to drop the ball a few times. And therefore you're not going to have the time to review your projects either. So knowing your numbers is one thing up front, so you quote them correctly. But then how do you know what to change or what to improve if you don't then have the time or make the time to review the projects you've done? So I think there are two or three really good points there. Okay, good. I'm just conscious of time and your time, so want to make sure we get through here and you can go on your merry way. What would you give? What advice would you give someone if who's a bit stuck with where they are currently in the business? They want to expand to that next level, but they don't really know what those first steps are to take. What would you say to someone in that position?
So they want to basically progress to the next level, is what you're saying, aren't you, Nick?
Yeah.
I mean,
stuck.
Yeah, if you get stuck, you've got to be starting to contact your people like your Mark Gregory's, your David Dodds. In this world, who've been doing it longer than you have.
Yeah.
I know Mark's from up north and in Yorkshire. He's probably never mentioned that to you, but
I think
once or twice.
Proud of that.
But you've got to look to those people with more experience than you, better landscapers than you, who can point you in the right direction. And you've got to be constantly upskilling yourself all the time. And then, I had a business coach myself, Philip Hartson. He was my cricket captain when I played at cricket. And Philip, said to me, right, Gareth, come on, when we're having a sit down, because I'd said to him, Philip, we need to have a chat. And then you get too busy. Yeah. And he just said, right, Gareth, I've known you for 30 odd years. I'll be at your house 2:00 on whenever it was. And I said, oh, I don't know, Gareth, I'm going to be there. Don't let me down.
Yeah.
And those 2 hours that I spent with him for the next 6 to 8 weeks were the most valuable 2 hours a week. It was unbelievable. And he was telling me things about myself because he knew me.
Yeah.
And he knew how I would work and things like that. He told me things about myself that I knew, but I wasn't doing anything about. So he changed me, he molded me.
Yeah.
Never be afraid to ask for help. Never be afraid to ask for help. That's the big one, isn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Far too many people operate their business in isolation, and I think the answers are out there. And it's funny, I've asked that question to everyone on this podcast, and there's a lot of people that said exactly the same answers. You go and seek out the people that have done it, been there, done it, bought the t-shirt. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. Find out what's worked for other people. Seek them out. Don't be shy to ask, and that will work. So, what was the thing for you then when he sat down with you for 2 hours? What were the things that you found out about yourself that was so valuable?
I was chaotic.
Right, just disorganized.
Not so much disorganized as I had too much on. But the big thing was learn to say one word. No.
Yeah, it's often hard.
You can't be a people pleaser. You can't. If somebody rings you up, Gareth, we've got a 50 grand job, we've got a 100 grand job. We want it in 3 months' time, though. We know that you're the man. We know this, you know that.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't do it, no. If you want to wait 8 months, 6 months, perhaps, then we can help you. Yeah. But I would always try. Yeah, no problem. I'll be around. Learn to say no. And do you know what? It's one of the hardest words to say.
It's only 2 letters. Yes is 3 letters, and people find it easier to say yes. They say
yes, exactly.
Say yeah.
And but what Philip taught me was say to them maybe, or I'll get back to you. Let me think about it.
Yeah.
Rather than but take a breath first. Don't jump in.
Yeah.
Just think. Take a breath. Can you do that in 3 months? Maybe. Let me have a think about that. Can I get back to you on that? And then you can come away from the call. You can have a think. You can look at your diary.
Yeah.
No, I can't do it in that time. I'm sorry.
Like you said earlier, manage expectations.
Manage expectations, but don't be afraid to say no.
Yeah.
And take a deep breath. Don't jump in. And it's let me think about it. Maybe. Yeah. Stuff like that. That was the biggest thing I took from those messages.
Yeah. Being a people pleaser.
Rather than be 100 grand, job. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd light up.
yeah, exactly.
You can make just as much money off a job for 10 grand as you can for 100 grand.
You can lose
if
a
it
lot
isn't
more in a
managed
100 grand one. Can't you? You can lose a lot more money in a 100 grand job if you do that wrong.
Exactly.
Good. Okay then. Great advice. Really, really priceless. So, if there were maybe one or two golden nuggets that you could give anyone in your experience of running a successful business, or in all your experience of being in business, if there were just like one or two key main golden nuggets, have a little
I
think.
think we've been over quite a few of them, to be honest with you, already. And that would be never be afraid to ask for advice. Always look to upskill yourself, and don't ever think that you know it all, because, in the landscaping world, especially, I could put a video on my Facebook page, and people will be, you're doing it wrong. You don't do it like that. You did it. And you can quote to them, well, British Standard says this is how you do it, or you should do it, or
Get back
and no, you don't. I've done it like this for 20 years. I don't care what you've done for 20 years. Yeah, you've been doing it wrong for 20 years.
Cowboy.
Or times change. Would you rather drive a car from the 70s or drive a car from 2022?
Yeah.
Times evolve, times move on. Better practices come along.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The Romans used to use, like hose pipes to get their levels. Now we use a zip level or a laser level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, the hose pipes thing still works, but what would you rather use?
Make it easier. Yeah. Make your life easier. Go
make
move
it life
at the time. So seek out advice. Make sure you keep yourself and your team trained.
Yes.
And never stop learning, I suppose, is the key.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Learnings out of that.
Be open, be progressive. That's what I mean. Be progressive. Be prepared to take on new techniques, new innovations. Don't be stuck in the past. Be progressive.
What do they say? A tree's either growing or it's dying. Same with people. You've got to grow with it, because if you stop and your competitors are doing all that stuff, it's not going to take long for you to be, falling behind. Gareth, that's us done, really. I'd like to plug some of your social media channels. I know you don't do a lot on your YouTube anymore, but you still have 2,500 subscribers. So I don't think there's many people in your industry that have that. How many people you've got on Facebook? 20-odd thousand?
24,000 follow me on Facebook, on my Facebook page, on my consultancy and landscaping page. Got about 7,500 on Instagram, the Northern Landscaper Gareth. Right. And then Twitter, I've got about 6,000 on there, I think.
Bloody hell.
So yeah.
So if there's anyone who's out there that isn't already connected to you, then you know where to go. So that's amazing. So if someone does want to contact you for any reason, what is the best way to get in touch with you? Whether to employ your services or to pick your brains, or what's the best way?
Probably the websites are good.
What's the URL? What's your URL for that?
It's GK Wilson is my business. I've got two websites. I've got GK Wilson Landscaping and just GK Wilson, and it's the consultancy website.
Yeah. And
then, but feel free to DM me on Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger, or just give me a call. My number's online. It can be found on my social media page. It can be found on my website. Just give me a shout anytime. And people often do.
Yeah. Well, maybe as a result of this, you might be even busier than what you already are. But hopefully, at least the stress levels are not quite what they used to be.
Certainly not. No.
All the fun without the aggro. Anyway, Gareth, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure that a lot of people got a lot of value from your wise words, your words of wisdom. I shall let you go now, but I look forward to seeing you this Friday at the Grosvenor, at the Barley Award.
I'll see you at the Barley Award, yes. Drinking my hand and hopefully yours.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll have a beer together then. Great to catch up with you. See you on Friday.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Grow Landscapers podcast. To get in touch and see how we can help you with your business by emailing nick@nickruddle.com.